Welcome to Limit Up, the weekly capital market podcast. My name is Don Collins. I'm a chartered accountant and business advisor of 30 years and a partner at Findex, a leading financial advisory and accounting services firm based in Australia and New Zealand. I'm here today with Ian Reynolds, trader and investor, former bank foreign exchange market maker, early investor in Bitcoin and tech founder. Ian, welcome again this week.
Thank you, Don.
Making money in stressed capital markets situations is tough. A typical investment portfolio will often fail. The world is moving into really challenging times as the US tries to address $39 trillion in debt, contradictory fiscal and monetary policy, internal conflict, and numerous wars. And the rest of the world starts to consider a new global reserve currency, a multipolar world, and aging demographics. So how can we understand what's going on in geopolitics and macroeconomics? Ian is here again today with his latest press release from Siberia Capital. Ian, up and away is your heading. Please take it away.
Yes, so no surprise that it's about the SpaceX IPO, which Wall Street managed to sell like the pros they are. Went up 39%, was it? Or something like that on the day. So everyone had a good time.
Yep.
The markets, the indexes didn't really celebrate that much.
Right.
So it really was a one-day event and has since rather been replaced by better news from Iran that there is at least a truce between the US and Iran, with the prospect of signing some sort of agreement on Friday. And we have comfort in that Iran has indeed agreed that that is the intent. Whereas previously Trump's been making stuff up and then Iran's been telling him he's lying. But that doesn't seem to be the case this time. The markets are rallying on that basis.
Okay. And with that SpaceX IPO, there was value in the company above $2 trillion.
Yep.
Is that a repricing of strategic technological assets, or a sign of excess liquidity, or just speculating?
Well, I think it's all speculation, isn't it? I mean, how do you value a space exploration company to start with? There are no metrics whatsoever, right?
There are no comparisons.
So it's a bit like how the first IPO was in fact either, depending on your perspective, the Dutch East India Company or the British East India Company, who raised money from the public for the first time for merchants to go to the Far East and bring back commodities, condiments, all that sort of stuff.
Yep, sure, yes.
And they raised an awful lot of money pretty easily. And it started, 400 years of enormous activity. Some of which is unpopular, some of which is popular. But it was the first IPO, and it came out of nothing. No one had ever done it before. And, it started a new wave of investment. Maybe this is the same thing as we look outside of our planet.
Sure. We'll see where it climbs to. The rest of your release?
Yeah, so really we're now, after the woo has died down a bit, and we're obviously waiting for OpenAI, whoever's next. Obviously, those details to be released. We have the RBA tomorrow, and we have Bank of Japan tomorrow, very important. And then it's the start of the Federal Reserve meeting tomorrow, but the announcement won't be till Wednesday.
Right.
So we have lots of very interesting things that the market is now going to focus on. So we have, we talked about Kevin Walsh before, first FOMC meeting tomorrow. Was the narrative that he was a hawk when it first got announced that he was the nominee, Trump's nominee, and the market sold off. Since then, the narrative has changed that he may not be the hawk, he might actually be the dove, and that he is more influenced by Treasury than Trump. i.e. Treasury is trying to do a growth at all cost strategy to inflate away the debt.
Yep. Yep.
And maybe Kevin Walsh can really be the black swan or the unexpected event that he starts cutting rates.
Right.
You have to say that the risk reward would definitely be on that side.
Right. So are the central banks tightening rates, or you sort of touched on Kevin maybe cutting?
Yeah, so the ECB raised rates, European Central Bank raised rates. Japan is almost certain to raise rates tomorrow because they've basically been telling us they're going to. Canada didn't. Australia has been 3 times. Whether they do it tomorrow, I don't know. And with headline numbers of 4, 5, and 6% in the US, then there's a lot of pressure to raise rates. But the timing is perfect in that we now have a truce in Iran. So is their opportunity to say, well, it was transitory again.
Yes.
Right? And we can go with something else, which is let's measure inflation by different metrics, which all FOMCs or chairs have their own preferred method, and they cherry pick the one that's lowest, basically, because they don't want to hike rates. So if ever there's an opportunity to do something completely unexpected, it will be the next couple of days.
Right. So just touching on a couple of points there, the banks are not tightening rates for inflation, or they are? Because it sort of felt like...
Banks. Yeah, they are. So far they have,
So not trying to protect their currency credibility. It is actually about, albeit you said transitory sort of inflationary expectations there. So
so transitory being a Powell terminology. Inflation was transitory in 2022. It went up to 9%. It wasn't transitory. But the opportunity now with the Iran crisis potentially going away is that they can view it as having been transitory, and they don't need to hike rates. But they could even cut rates if they wanted to.
Even if it was transitory, yes.
Exactly.
And you touched on the picking the lowest measure. Which inflation measure should markets trust, and why?
Well, I don't think markets trust any of them, but they are focusing on the one that the Fed is focusing on, which is apparently, and we'll hear from him for the first time in his role on Wednesday. It's the Dallas Fed trimmed mean PCE, so personal consumption expenditure. And the trim mean is like we have in Australia, where you take out all of the noise around the signal, and it's a very lagging indicator. So that currently is 2.3% year on year, whereas CPI and PPI headline are coming in at 4.2 and 6.5. So that's significantly away from what more recent numbers in CPI and PPI are picking up. We'll find out on Wednesday.
We will. Interesting. And the other part you touched on was the growth at all costs to inflate away the debt. And we'll probably move on to your charts, but what would that mean for investors who are in bonds, gold, Bitcoin, and foreign exchange markets?
Well, the assumption is that if Treasury and Trump can get the Fed to slash rates, it encourages growth, and that we can see a very high rate of growth, which will inflate away all of that debt, i.e. the value of the debt is still the same, obviously. But they can now start paying down the debt properly.
Right.
And obviously the cost to service the debt plummets as
Goes
well.
Down. Yes. Yep. Good.
So for markets, it's good for stock markets because money is cheaper. economy is stronger. For interest rate markets, it's good at the short end because we know which way rates are going, and it's anchored to the short end. For long-term bond holders, it's rather dependent on whether excessive rate cuts fuels that inflation or not. And often it's the perception of whether it's going to or not, or whether it actually does or not, that affects prices. For gold and silver, etc., it should be good because the dollar should weaken on lower interest rates. But it should be good for most markets because it's growth led. American economy is the only one that's even got any sort of growth at the moment. So it should be perceived to be good as long as they don't cut it too quickly or too much.
Yep. Good. Excellent. And was there anything else in your release that you wanted to cover before we move through the charts?
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, it really, we had the liquidity sell off to buy SpaceX, and of course all the other IPOs coming off. Now we've had the woo of SpaceX did well, went up 38% on the day. We see its second day of trading tonight, but it didn't flow through to other stock markets. But now we have the Iran thing that seems to be going okay. So markets have really been in flux the last few weeks, but really it'll have to come back to fundamentals and what central banks are doing very soon. By tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. Let's see how those charts are going.
All right. You let me know when you can see it. Should be coming up any time now.
Yep.
Cool. So let's start where we usually start with liquidity and Bitcoin. So having had a big sell-off, it's had, a week of a bit of a rally. This orange is what we were talking about last week, which would be an 80% retracement from the high, which every cycle has had. And so we're nowhere near that low yet. So you can't say that a low is in. With Ethereum, it's kind of the same, but a bit limper. We've seen some volume on the downside as people having to cash out to possibly buy, the SpaceX IPO.
Yep.
With gold, that's a 30% retracement we're looking in with the orange. So we've also had a similar thing to Bitcoin. We've had a much better bounce this morning, up 2%. Silver's up 3%. So that's okay. We're not really in positive mode in any of the things we talked about so far, in that we're just bouncing. Currencies, dollar yen, as we talked about last week, is still around 160. So what will the Bank of Japan do? Well, tightening rates should help the yen go higher, i.e. dollar yen to go lower. So they will be keen to hike rates, both domestic purposes and for the currency purposes. But still, market is challenging the Bank of Japan to come in again and intervene, which they may well do tomorrow. The dollar has dropped on that news out of Iran. So this big lighter band is a big bull trend that has gone on for like 15 years. And this is where we've been breaking below that long-term channel. Unsuccessfully so far, in that we've had 3 goes and we bounced back again, but we're not getting very high. Every time we get to 100 on the DXY, it gets sold off. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times it's bounced from there. The Australian dollar, not really doing anything, just reacting to the US dollar. Bonds are bid this morning, as you'd expect, with the Iran news, and rates have dropped back again. But still high. And Mr. Walsh might consider that where are rates compared to when Trump got in? Well, they're pretty much exactly the same as when Trump got in. So this was inauguration in the red that day there.
Yep.
So, they're not dissimilar. So
no.
In a year and a half of Treasury Secretary Bessent saying rates are coming down, Trump pushing power to cut rates, nothing has happened. And the debt's just getting higher and higher.
Yeah.
Can see from the stock markets what we were talking about, the last session, which was here Friday. Obviously, we haven't started the session for today because we're not in US time yet. You see, okay, well, this was the all-time high. We came off with that liquidity crunch and we have bounced with SpaceX, but it's not ripping up. Whether this afternoon we're going to get further rally, I suspect we will. But markets are kind of not taking advantage of the good news yet. The SpaceX and the Iran situation. Maybe that's too early, but you can see that it's subdued and it hasn't got a short-term direction at the moment, I would say.
Yep.
And that's really it for the moment, because we need to see central banks this week, and we need to see whether the Iran truce is an actual deal.
Yes.
I suspect it will be going back to the Strait of Hormuz being open, that Iran can charge millions of dollars per container ship. The US has to withdraw its warships from the area. And so the US can say, oh yes, we did it. It's kind of like it was before, except Iran's making $2 million supposedly every container ship. But it doesn't solve the real problem, which is between Israel and Iran.
No, exactly. Are there any other announcements this week we need to be aware of?
Let's have a look. Not really. Economically, we got CPI in the EU and the UK. In the EU, CPI inflation has been going up. In the UK, it's kind of hasn't been. But really, that RBA decision tomorrow is going to be interesting. The economists are now saying that they won't hike rates. I'm not sure that's true. I think they probably will. And there seems to be a lot of household stress in Australia around interest rates.
Yep. We wait to see the outcome, and for those homeowners, hopefully it doesn't increase, but as you say, it may well do.
Yep. Otherwise, there's not much economic data this week.
No. Well, as I said, the big news will be, will the truce hold up by the end of the week, and will that then proceed?
Yep.
That will overshadow everything else.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Nothing else then before we close off?
No, all good. Thanks very much.
Okay, well, thanks again, Ian. Always enlightening. Look forward to next week's data and information. For those listening, that's another wrap of this week's Limit Up podcast. This and previous podcasts can be located on the Siberia Capital website, or alternatively, you can subscribe by accessing the link at www.siberia.capital/contact. Thank you, everyone, again for listening in, and thanks again for this week.
Thanks, Don. See you next time.
Thank you.
Cheers.
See you later.